Hello, you're listening to the whole conversation in 20 minutes or less. Today, I have the honor and privilege to sit with four beautiful human beings who have created an organization called Living Co-Creation. And truly, thank you, Makasha and Catherine Roski and Carolyn and Sanford Anderson. You are mentors, models, teachers of a really important and valuable resource and tool for all of humanity today called co-creation. And so thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Julie.
Love being here.
Oh, thank you. So we better start with what is co-creation. And I would love to hear Makasha define this, because I've heard it in the feminine voices so much, and I just haven't heard from you, Makasha. So tell us a little bit, what is co-creation and why does it matter?
Well, I mean, because there is such a need for people to come together, connect. It's ancient in terms of tribal communities and so on. But I mean, I think the deepest way I can describe it is coming together with others, or two or more gathered, or using that particular phrasing. That two or more together starts to create a resonant field. And it starts to move into a relationship, and then the relationship can express itself in whatever way that really empowers what the inner visions are of those that are holding, particular focuses towards creating something beautiful for life.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Does anybody want to add anything to that?
Well, one of the definitions we have in the Co-Creators Handbook is conscious co-participation with the impulse of creation, meaning that divine impulse that each of us is in our essence and finds in nature in all of life. It is that meeting of the impulse of creation in all of us.
Beautiful. So the four of you have really been practicing this and living this for decades. And not just collaborating and cooperating with others, but you have found a way to totally access that divine impulse, that impulse of creation through you, honoring and really encouraging that to come from others within that, not just your relationships, but community. And you are the master of that. So you've recently created an organization called Living Co-Creation, which I love that, because who more perfect to create that than those who have been living co-creation for so long. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what is living co-creation?
Do you want to go, hon?
Well, it's Catherine starting.
Okay.
Well, we came together, I guess it's been about 2.5 years now, where we've been in relationship with Carolyn and Sanford, and particularly Carolyn since the mid-'80s. Makasha had started World Family back in 1972, and we came together soon after that, and then World Family joined with Global Family, so there's a whole lineage, and we feel like we're all encoded with the practices of and the understanding of co-creation. So about 3 years ago, we felt like our greatest passion was really bringing these gifts out into the world, and we recognized that together as a team, we had particular skills, and we kind of covered the whole gamut of what's needed to create a successful business, and we love each other dearly, and so it just felt natural that we would create a business together to give our gifts.
Beautiful. So what are those gifts, Sanford? What is Living Co-Creation?
Well, for me, first of all, I came from a little different direction on this because I lived in an intentional community for about 10 years. And we had a model that was brought to our teacher called spherical reality. It turns out the principles are the same, but the language is different. So when I came back together with Carolyn about 4 years ago, this is what then led to the formation of our company. And for me, the essence of co-creation is, first of all, I think of it in terms of I co-create with myself. So I'm deeply in touch with the capital S self of myself, so that I can then connect with the deep part of other people through their connection with their deep self. So when we are all in this state together, then we have access not only to more of who we are, but who we are as a group. And so one of the things that I think is, it's always fun and surprising to see it really kick in is when the whole group, is at that point. And the Roskis and Carolyn and I meet for about 4 hours every week on video calls like this with Zoom. And we spend a lot of time basically just building the field with each other. And so we experience this, on a regular basis. And this is what allows us to, help others to experience that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, I'd like to add one other thing here, and that is over the years we've learned that in order to have a fully functioning co-creative team, you have to have 4 elements. You have to have the spiritual element, which is the vision. You have to have the emotional component, which is the resonance. You have to have the mental component, which is the systems and structures. And you have to have the physical, which is the implementation. So in the 4 of us, we have covered all of those aspects. And I've always referred to Sanford as our secret ingredient, because the Roskis and I are very strong on the spiritual and the emotional. We've got that handled. But what Sanford brings, his strength, is the physical and the mental, the systems and structures and the implementation. So that's what makes this team work so well together. That's one of the things. And as Catherine says, our deep love and respect for one another.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So you mentioned helping others experience this, and it is an experience. Living co-creation is an experiential process. Let's talk about that. You have different elements that you teach. You bring together people in gatherings. You will consult with people, individuals, organizations, groups, but you're doing a lot of different expressions of living co-creation as you come together here. How do you do that? How can you assist someone to really understand the essence of co-creation and experience that in a group? Who wants to tackle that? Catherine?
Well, one of the ways that we do it is by having gatherings, retreats, events. We have one coming up here at Hummingbird in September, and we've been doing that every year for the last 3 years. And it's the opportunity for people to come together in the resonant field to really experience a deep sense of love for self and other, and then to learn the practices that really help enhance their understanding so they can go back to their projects or businesses or whatever it might be and bring these practices and really up level what they're doing. Is they move from a more dominated oriented culture to really an empowered partnership culture. So that's one of the ways. We also have done a telecourse we did with Oroville, India a couple years ago, and this fall we're going to be going to Germany and doing both a program there as well as putting together a telecourse that will be shared throughout Europe. So we're excited for that.
Excellent. Okay.
And Julie, another way we share these is through Catherine and I wrote this guidebook, Co-Creators Handbook 2.0. And so this is a good tool that often groups of people will just buy the book and guide themselves through the process.
Beautiful. All those links will be in the description below. I want to do this. I want to ask each of you to think of your favorite practice. Your favorite practice for co-creation, for living co-creation, and bring that as a gift to all of our viewers today. So who would like to start? What's your favorite co-creative practice?
Well, I would say, Julie, that the deepest part of connecting with spirit in a way that allows the relational field to come together. So my favorite is going into the awareness of what's happening that's emerging in relationship to co-creation whenever we're called to do something, so that taking it from the vertical to the horizontal is very, very important, and to have the tools to be able to create a resonant field that allows for the right relations to emerge, whenever we're doing that. And it's both personal and it's collective. So whatever we do in terms of love and sharing and and co-creating, it has an effect in the overall interrelatedness of life itself. So we're apprenticing that self-organizing field. So that's the power for me, is the two or more gathered, because there's synergy when two or more come together in that resonant field. And we say you can't co-create unless you're in resonance. It's very difficult, and people try that. And of course, we're working a whole different way to bring a higher order to what it is that we're called as our divine purpose and service in the world, to our greater causes and our greater humanity's upliftment.
Mm. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, the personal work is so important. It really begins with self. And for me, my favorite practice for that is heart math, using the heart math techniques, which I practice every morning. And that gives me this space actually to operate from, of what they call coherence, but we call resonance. And it's like flexing a muscle or building a muscle, being able to access that more and more easily by putting my attention there. And so for me, that's the fundamental practice.
Julie, when you asked the question, one just popped in immediately. We've been doing, in the context of Global Family and our work at Hummingbird, we've been doing gatherings and trainings for decades. And in every single one of them, on the last day or the second to last day, we always do an acknowledgement process. So there's a lot of different acknowledgement processes, but after you get to know people so that you really do have a feeling for their essence, for me, one of the most beautiful processes is to have put someone in the center of the circle in your core group and have each person reflect back the beauty and the magnificence of that person. That's transformational. For many people, that's something they're not accustomed to, and it heals and transforms.
And I would just add to that I think our yearning to have trust and safety with one another, to feel really held in love, and to feel that we've got permission to share our authentic selves. That's really foundational to co-creative practices, is drawing forth the authentic self from each person and their divine essence, and to empower that full expression into the world. And so, as Makasha said, we can't have co-creation without resonance. It's built through a field of trust and safety and empowerment and really deep listening, seeing one another, and moving beyond judgments to really a place of love and compassion.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I'm just going to mention that in the book, Co-Creator's Handbook, and on your websites, and we'll put links below, but you also have the Co-Creators Agreements, which are really a beautiful construct for us to just hold and practice with that. And that's one of my favorites, is really bringing up the Co-Creators Agreements and really living that. So thank you for sharing those. I want to bring up just a challenge before we close the conversation today. So what if someone watching this today says, I want to live co-creation, and yet someone I live with is not in resonance, or someone I work with I have a problem with, or they don't even understand what resonance is, so there's no way I can even do any of this because I'm not in a community that gets this. They don't have the consciousness or the awareness or the self-referential pieces. So what about those who are out in the world who really are not finding community support, even in their home living environments? What would you say to those today? Pause and listen. This is a big one, because I hear that a lot. I hear that, like, I can't do that because I don't have my people.
Well, I'll take a jump into this one. The first thing I think that's so important, if I'm that person, I'm looking for my co-creative partners, is to stay in my heart, to stay out of judgment, out of criticism, to be my authentic self. And by sharing that authentic self, hopefully creating the safe space to bring that forth in that other person. And I believe there's also a reality that sometimes we just are not in resonance with another person. We're not here to co-create with that person. We don't have aligned purposes. And to bless that and not try to force something, that's just sometimes a reality.
Yeah. And I think as we're practicing what Carolyn just said and honoring ourselves, that we naturally then start drawing to ourselves those relationships that really are in resonance. And it takes both a letting go and then an opening to what is new is coming in simultaneously. And I think if we really come from that place that's true to ourselves, then we'll be guided to those that we really will be most effective and fulfilled in our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my come froms has always been go where you're invited. And I use that cliche of go where you're invited, where two or more are gathered, there you are. You can, and then it's not to make something happen, it's to see what emerges out of that connection that is authentic and real and can support one's own, I would say, it's spiritual, a divine destiny. We're all looking for participation to connect, to really be able to uplift each other, especially in these times when it's so polarized in political issues and so on. And the model that we have is a psycho-spiritual social model. So these are tools to really be able to go inward, because it's inside out work that really empowers a co-creative model. And that's what Sanford was saying, is that is so essential, to be able to find, and then you start to have fun. And one of the greatest passions I have is to have a lot of fun. And we have a little cliche of no fun, no do.
I love that.
And we find our right partners by virtue of the attractor state. And then you can tell when you come together because you join genius.
Yeah.
Really.
So
what I would add to that is to hold the intention to find at least one other person to share presence with, to share resonance with, where two or more are gathered. And whether you do that, locally, or even, virtually, like we're doing it right here. Like I was saying earlier, we spend 4 hours a week connecting with the Roskis in this way, and it's a palpable presence that we experience with each other. So that's another, option for how do you manifest your intent to hold presence with at least one other.
Yeah, that palpable presence and that inside job piece. I just want to tie this together now as our last little piece is what occurred to me listening to you is, all of us are really motivated in helping to evolve to a co-creative culture, right? A co-creative society. So even if you are, yes, we're attracting those co-creative partners, but even practicing this ourselves helps to really evolve those. We create this palpable presence. So even for myself, if I'm practicing this and everybody in the workplace just thinks I'm crazy or woo-woo or I don't, whatever, but we're really raising the frequency to allow others to awaken to their own highest potential, their creative potential and theirs. Yeah? Makasha, you look like you wanted to jump in there.
Well, the circle becomes the teacher.
Yeah.
It's not a hierarchical model. It's actually an empowered co-creative model that allows for people to come together and empower what is emerging. So it's a real spiritual also process, to really access divine purpose. And how do you bring that into reality to, support what's emerging in one's soul purpose, in one's life.
Yeah.
Julie, your comment about affecting others when you practice this yourself, I flashed on a couple of things. One is the saying that when you're on fire, people will come from miles away to watch you burn. And that's one. And also, I flash back. We were talking earlier about both having the experience and the understanding. And there's another old saying that understanding is the booby prize. I mean, you can read the co-creator's handbook and you can understand this stuff, but that's not the experience.
Yeah.
You need to place yourself in a situation where you can experience the palpable presence of yourself and others, one or more.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you. What a delightful conversation. And it's always to sit in the presence of you and to feel this. Just being with you is always my highest honor. And I just love and adore each and every one of you. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
You've been listening to the whole conversation in 20 minutes or less. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.